Hey YouTube, welcome back to another edition of Cycle QMX. I'm your host, Ryan Wood, and today we're building off-road wheelchairs. So go ahead and stay tuned. We've got lots to get caught up on. Hope all's been well since the beginning of the year. We've had a ton of snow, we've had a ton of orders. Shout out to David and Albert and George and Alfonso. Thanks to all you guys for your orders this year. We're getting them out. We're getting through the snow. So stay tuned. We got lots of builds. Right now I got this one all finished and jigged up. Just installed the steer tube here, the main tube here. Got that all done. And now we have to do the swing arm. I think last time we left off, we were working on the rear swing arm and put it in the rear swing cage. Whew, we got lots in store. Stick with us.
It's on right now?
It's on right now.
Oh.
Live.
Okay. It's about 18 degrees. Feels like 12.
Yeah, that's about how far we get that.
Yeah. Scooby, gotta move, bud.
Alright YouTube, at this point it's just a series of moving the plank and moving myself forward, working my way through the snow on our way to the shop, which is over there. It's only about maybe 300 feet. It's the longest 300 feet of my life. Stay tuned. Alright YouTube, we've made it to the shop. We were able to make some snow. Definitely pounded up there. We're getting some work done today. Trying to seal up the shop so it is not as breezy. Stay tuned as I keep posted. Definitely call that here. Alright YouTube, hopefully you got better lighting. You can kind of see what we've got going on here. See, I got the plasma cutter table all set up. I had to get a bigger air compressor, had to wire in the panel, but now I'm able to produce some pretty good parts pretty regularly. It is quite cold, but able to cut some pieces out quite nice. All sorts of different parts. In the end, you can see here, been cutting out quite a few. Finally got the coolant in there. That seems to be helping out quite a bit. Now on the other end of things, we got some storage set up. I've been working on a, hold on, we're losing some lighting. How's that? So we're back. And today I'm working on building this jig right here. This is gonna help me build some new creations we're working on. A pedal assist electric vehicle. You'll be able to use it as a truck, utility vehicle, street legal, brakes, tail lights, headlights. Have all sorts of everything you need it's going to have on it. And this jig right here, it's pretty massive. It's 2 by 3 inch steel tubing, and it's eventually going to have a rotisserie. So you can see right here, it's going to have a rotisserie. So mount, be able to rotate this entire frame, this entire jig, and I'll be able to weld all the way around. It's going to be beautiful. Stay tuned, and we'll move on to the next. Hey YouTube, welcome back to another edition of Cycle QMX. I'm your host, Ryan Wood, and I've been trying to film an episode for several weeks now. Turns out snow, weather, all sorts of stuff. And now I'm finally starting to build how to build a wheelchair from a recumbent bike. There's a lot of pieces. So let's go ahead and get into it. So stay tuned. So alright YouTube, as I've been trying to build this off-road wheelchair, I figure I'd fill you in on a few tips and tricks on what I do when I'm welding and prepping my metal. So just like any metal, most steel plate comes with a mill scale on it, which is created from the manufacturing process when it's extruded out of the machine and laid into either a flat sheet or into flat bars or tubing. There's a mill scale, kind of similar to your welding, creating slag on the outside. It creates a scale. Typically it's black, so it looks something like this. You see metal like this, and actually on there, that grayness is the mill scale, and you have to remove that mill scale. So let me pull apart. I use a chemical. I dip my parts in, I soak them in. I soak my parts in these pieces here, and basically it's a vinegar combination, and it removes the mill scaling without having to sand or grind or do anything like that, because when you're grinding or sanding the mill scale off, inherently you're going to be removing some of the material that you don't want to remove. And it's also removing the level or squareness of your part if you're having to sand or grind the mill scale off. So let me go ahead and show you a couple pieces. Alright, so here's a part I just pulled out. You can see as I rub with my finger, the mill scale is being removed. Now here's one I scrubbed on a little bit, still got a little bit left, but then this has the full mill scale. So if we compare them, you can see how the black part is being removed or slightly able to come off, or this still has it on there. And this I scrubbed, which still has a little bit on here, and I'll have to work on that a little bit more. Here's my bed of parts. It does rust the material slightly, and you can see here on the end where it's cleaning, removing all that mill scale from the steel. And you have to do this before you send it to paint. Otherwise, they're going to have to sandblast it, and that's going to be another step or process. And if you do this before you weld, your parts are all nice and clean. You can get a wire brush on there if you want, or some steel wool, or you just kind of pop it back in here. And just rinse that off. And there you go. Removing the mill scale from your parts. No mill scale removed, slightly removed, and once again, half removed. And you have to do this prior to welding, ideally, and definitely prior to sending it out to paint. So this is one more step in the process of treating the metal prior to welding. Alright YouTube, so I about wrapped it up. We have the seat mounted, we have the basket mounted, and places for the battery. I have started to do some of the final welds, but it's all been tacked up, ready to go. We got a little bit more to do. But I think we're getting there. So basically the front end is done, the handlebars are done, the seat's done, the basket's done, the battery mount is done, the axle's done. We even got the disc brake mount caliper in there. Woo-wee! It's all come together. Alright YouTube, just a little update and close-up. We now have the mid bracket installed for the pedal assist. See if I can focus in on that. So there you have it. So right here, pedal assist. And our now bike is almost complete. We have the pedal assist, we have the rear swing arm, we have the seat, we have the center tube. We now officially have a QMX. Welcome to the new world. Well, moving right along on this. I don't know what else we got left to do. We've got the seat, we got the basket, we got the batteries, we got the swing arm, we got the pedal assist installed, we got the steering tube installed. I think all we have left is paint. Paint, powder coat. So after we did the mill scale, we removed the mill scale, then we were able to weld. We did some grinding, we did some cutting, we did a little fabricating, we did the CNC plasma cutter, cut out a few parts, and bada boom, bada bing, we have a QMX. If you have any questions, stay tuned. If not, subscribe, like, check out our other videos, and maybe you'll see what's next. Definitely this bike's going to paint, so when you come back, we'll get it fully assembled and show you some of the other projects we're working on. So to wrap this one up, we took a Fat Tad Recumbent Trike. We added a Sun Trike rear axle. We added a rack for the mount for the basket. We also have mounts on there for dual batteries. We're going to run a 1,000-watt brushless motor. We did add the bottom bracket for a pedal assist, so we're going to do a pedal assist. And then we added the front steer tube to add steering so we can have those upright handlebars. We also mounted a seat plate so we can mount a nice cushy marine grade seat on there. That's it. I guess I got to do the finish welding on here now that I have it all tacked up and marked in place. Now I got to do some finish welding. I guess that's all we have left. Stay tuned. Alright YouTube, just to keep you updated, I am using a MIG welder with solid core wire. I do have it hooked up to pure CO2, so no flux core. If you're doing this at home and you have a MIG welder, you may be using a flux core, so you're going to have a little bit more slag than what I have on here. If you have the possibility to go ahead and hook your system up to some inert gas, CO2, or you can use the 25% mix CO2 argon, so people prefer that. But I'm using pure CO2 today, and it seems to be welding pretty good. I have my system set up at about 30 amps. Really thin wall tubing, so you have to be careful not to burn through. Just keep that in mind. Alright, back to welding. I could be using the TIG welder. Right now we're going to use the MIG because you may be doing this at home, so this may be what you're using. So the keeping it with doing it yourself build, this is probably what you got. Let's see, it's a .035 wire. And here we go. As you may see, I'm doing small bursts, and that's to prevent it from burning through and kind of really polying up my weld, so I have a nice looking bead. Keep that notice. Bring you in real quick, see what I'm doing. Just right there. Just very small little welds. Now keep it nice and cool. Don't overheat it and get it warm. Alright, you stay there. Stay tuned. Alright, YouTube. So, hopefully you stayed tuned. If you haven't seen our other videos, make sure you check them out and like and subscribe and all that stuff. And if you haven't seen the rest of this build, make sure you go over and check out the beginning of our videos on how to build an off-road wheelchair. And you see how I started this off with grinding the rear axle, cage, and putting on the steer tube and setting the motor mounts. We got the motor mounts. Now we got the basket on there. We got the seat on there. Right now I got a RockShox air ride suspension in there. Man, this thing's gonna be smoking. So if you haven't caught up on any of the other stuff, make sure you do that. We have lots in store for you. We got a new welder here. We got the jig table set up, so we're gonna be building some regular bikes. If you haven't seen those, go ahead and check those out. Until next time, peace.